Give me 2.
What's up, everybody? Welcome in. We are the Palazzo Podcast, 2 L's, 2 Z's. Like I said, we got a guest today.
Give me 2.
We're going to do 4 teams, not 2, 4. We're going next level. It is officially the unveiling of the rest of minor league baseball across this great land, across entire North America, Ben?
I'm trying to think.
Vancouver.
I would say there is still Vancouver.
Vancouver
Yay!
Yep. So.
All right. Well, it's exciting. I'm really excited to be a part of the show. We're going to do the Rangers, the Astros, the Rockies, and the San Francisco Giants in 1 hour extravaganza. Special bonus, a bonus half hour. We usually probably go 40 minutes anyway, so it's not that much of a bonus. But it is. It is a bonus. And we've got Joe Lowry here, who is the man. Joe is here for Prospects Live. Now, I always know him as first really through the show and through the Double Deuce Discord and getting to know him through here. That's how I know you, Joe. But you work at Prospects Live, and you're a damn good prospect mind.
I appreciate it.
Well, you should.
Joe knows if you want to know anything about baseball cards, Joe's your guy. And
that's kind of how I got into it, right? Yeah.
That's how Joe and I really got to know each other, is on the Prospects Live Discord through a baseball cards channel they have there. And I think that's kind of how Joe kind of got into the Prospects Live game. And he's really kind of just blown up from there. So.
Damn! It's impressive, Joe.
Yeah, my love of prospects, my love of dynasty baseball, my love of baseball, and my love of baseball cards, they all kind of coalesced into, just digging deeper and deeper every year and growing better, as I learn.
Hell yeah. Ben, what are you most excited about? Because you're really excited. All of minor league baseball is underway now. What are you looking forward to most this minor league season?
From what I understand, and this comes from an interview that Theo Epstein did with Jason Stark's podcast this week, they are still using the minor leagues to experiment and do some different things. And part of that is doing some further experimentation with the pitch clock. And there are some things that they are checking to see how it works with the pitch clock for possible usage when we get to playoff time. So there may be some adjustments we see to the pitch clock that happen mid-year, later in the year, that may determine how the pitch clock is used, specifically like later innings when we get to postseason, because nobody wants to see a playoff game ended on a pitch clock violation. That's mainly what they had for their conversation. And Theo said, we're looking into how do we make that not happen. But we also have to enforce. And so, how do we do both? And they've got some things they're doing in the minors. And there's always different things they're doing in the minor leagues with rule structures. And I'll be honest that I haven't done a deep dive into all the different things that are going on this year yet. Sure, I'll get into that over the next couple of weeks as we start the year. But it's going to be really interesting to see, and I always enjoy that. That's part of the minor league season I like, because if you've been watching minor league baseball the last 3-4 years, all this pitch clock stuff is nothing new. And that's why you're seeing a lot of these guys who are coming up and rookies, first, second year guys that have been playing with the pitch clock for the last couple of years, they're pitching way better than the, 35-year-old vets that are suddenly going, oh God, I don't know how to handle how to deal with my routines and get into things. Yeah, these kids that are coming up that are 25 years old and spent the last 3-4 years that have pitching in the upper minors with this stuff, they got no issue with it. It's their pace. They're cool with it. So it's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, Joe, does that get you excited? Or is there something else about minor league baseball that you love or looking forward to more this season in 2023?
Yeah, so last year we got a taste of AAA data, minor league data, right? So in the PCL and in the Florida State League, we had Hawkeye data. So we had essentially StatCast data for just those two areas. Now, all AAA, we are getting StatCast data, which is tremendous. And we actually have just released this week at Prospects Live an app that scrapes all that data and puts it all in a single spot for you, which is really good. Made by Sam Worth, who just joined the Prospects Live team, and I am super excited to get access to all that data because I love the cross section of live watching the games, watching the video, and then matching that up with the data to inform my opinions. And it's been so difficult to do that in the prospect space because a lot of that data has been behind paywalls. And now, at least at the AAA level, as well as in the Florida State League, we're getting access to all that StatCast data. It's fantastic.
Yay! All right. Well, those are two great reasons to be excited for minor league baseball across the land. I'm excited just to see who does what. Who gives it to me straight? Who gives me the business? Who really rises up? Who gives us a new stat line that maybe we didn't see coming? Because every year, somebody pops that maybe you didn't see. All the coverage Ben does, Joe does, Prospects Live, and everybody else in the business, someone's going to pop and surprise us. That's why we play along, because it's fun to see that happen. So I can't wait to see who does that. But we got 4 teams to dive into, so let's get down to it. We're starting with the Rangers. All right, so prepare for the Rangers, folks. The Texas Rangers right here. Not the law enforcement brand, but rather the baseball team who has spent a lot of money the last couple of years. Is there anything left? Why'd they spend all this money? Are there prospects in their farm system to be gotten? Joe, why don't you lead us off? Can you give us the current top 3 prospects with the Texas Rangers as you see it?
Yeah, for me, and one of them's already there, but he still has prospect status. For me, the top guy is Josh Young. You can quibble between Josh Young and Evan Carter in my mind, but I prefer Josh Young simply because he's there. He's gone through all the levels. I don't have any questions about his skill set. There's no real holes in his game, in my opinion. He's not going to steal bases, but in general, he can man the hot corner. He's got the skill sets to stick there. He's got above average hit and power. I think you're probably looking at a 260 to 280 hitter who's going to get you regularly in that 20-ish home run range. Just a good 5-6 type of hitter in your lineup. And let me say this. There's a bit of bias because a few years ago on Twitter, out of the blue, he asked me for a baseball card that I posted of his, and he gave me his address, and I sent it to him. So a little bit of bias working in there.
That's fine. You take it where you can get it. I'm all for it, Joe.
And following that up, I have Evan Carter, right? And then I'll have Owen White as my third guy. So Evan Carter, just sublime talent. Just that the bat in his hands, he's gonna be a monster from the ability to put that bat on the ball. He's just so good at it. It's a plus hit tool. He's got more of a line drive bat path, so he may never get to that 30 home run type of world, but he's gonna be hitting probably in that 280 to 300 range. He should be able to stick in center field. He's going to get you some stolen bases. He put up together 28 stolen bases last year. The one caveat here is that he's dominated at the lower levels, so we'll have to see how he handles more advanced pitching. But at the end of the day, he looks like the real deal. The floor is super high on him. And then Owen White, I think, is he's like an ideal starting pitcher for him. He's got a fastball that's in the mid-90s. His slider is a plus slider. That's his whiff pitch. He's got a good curveball as well. He'll throw a changeup in there. Very good command. I saw him throwing that fastball all over the place for strikes, for whiffs. The biggest problem with Owen White is health. He had Tommy John and then the pandemic, and then in the summer he had, I believe it was like a forearm strain that shut him down. So, if that hadn't happened, I would expect that we would be hearing his name a lot more as a potential player for the Rangers kind of rotation this year, but we didn't.
Yeah, and then of course they spend all that
Ben,
money,
you're down
so
with
there
that?
isn't a spot. So
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I mean, I think Carter and Young are probably your top two in most spots, and then after that, there's probably a group of about 7 guys that you could make good arguments for number 3, and I wouldn't have a big issue with anybody going outside of that. My third guy is Anthony Gutierrez, who I believe I have him down as the guy who's going to do the Emmanuel Rodriguez jump this year. I think he's unbelievably talented, and he's going to see full season ball for the first time this year, and just has ridiculous talent that, I mean, if Emmanuel Rodriguez would have been allowed to play a full season for the Twins last year, very likely could have finished the season with a game or two in Double-A, but likely would have played half the year single and half the year at High A, and we would all be talking about where he may rank among the top 25 prospects rather than top 50, top 75. That's, I think, where you're going to see Gutierrez come, where he's not on top hundreds right now, but I think he's going to be that guy that by the middle of the season everyone's going to go, so where in the top 50 does he end up? And by the end of the year, there's going to be some lean to him as maybe a top 25 guy. So,
okay. Well, and that's top 3. Let's get the next big 3. That's what we do with these shows here on the Prospects Podcast. It's the Podcast Prospects Power Half Hour. Sorry. Boy, I'm all out of sorts today. What day is it? Where are we? What's happening? Who am I? How do I know this is real? Can I touch you guys? No, I can't. That's not real.
Don't break your screen.
Joe, who's the next big 3?
Yeah, so for sake of variety, I didn't include Gutierrez, but he would be one of my guys in here if Ben hadn't mentioned him. And it's funny, we do a top 100 for the baseball card collecting hobby prospects list, and Anthony Gutierrez was in that list. He was 68th in our list. I mean, the kid's amazing. But for my 3, I'll go with Aaron Zavala, who's an OBP power guy I've loved, since the moment he got into that system. He's, going to do plus to double plus walk rates, that 15 to 18% type walk rates with a K rate that's, 20% or less. So in OBP fantasy leagues, he is going to be a beast. And if it wasn't for getting injured at the AFL, I think he would have been in the mix for a starting job with the Rangers this year. Next on my list is going to be Dustin Harris. I love Dustin Harris. I know that some places he's not as high, but I just love his power swing. Just the guy he Paul Bunyan-esque power. I mean, he doesn't swing hard and the ball goes far. He has out of the park power, and being a baseball card collector, that really hits the heart where those guys sell the best. So I'm always looking for those guys. So his power is plus power, and he's shown that he can play outfield, which was a question. There was a question if he was going to get forced to first base, but he's been playing outfield relatively well. Yeah. So I'm more positive than on Dustin Harris than I was a year ago at this time. Showing that he can stick in the outfield is a big deal, I think. And then finally, one guy that is kind of somebody I'm higher on than I think the majority of the industry. And again, I would have put Anthony Gutierrez here, but I'll go with Jason Morabel. So,
Yep.
Jason Morabel, I absolutely love. Super patient at the plate. Room to grow. He's 6'2". He's lanky. There's a slight bit of stiffness to him, but I mean, his data looked great. He had double plus 90th percentile exit velocities. He got better as the season went on, which is not something you see with these young prospects. He was at the complex for most of the year. He's an 18-year-old. By August, he put up a 377, 441, 607 triple slash. I mean, he was on fire. I'm in love with him. Like I said, hopefully he puts on that weight and good weight, and it looks like he can put it on to get to that added power that'll make him an impactful player.
Give it to him, Ben.
I was going to say, so are you ready? So Zavala is definitely on mine, and I'm right there with you. I don't think we would be talking about Robbie Grossman in fantasy right now if Zavala hadn't gotten hurt, because I really think that's the kind of player he is kind of where Robbie Grossman is, but think Robbie Grossman with more power, because Grossman is kind of a 15-15 guy. Put maybe a 25-10 instead. Because I think Zavala has a little more, or has some athleticism, but he isn't going to give you the same speed that Grossman can. But he's got significantly more power. But that same OBP that Grossman gives you. Grossman has a pretty darn good eye, and not a bad, similar player. In that, yeah, I was really disappointed. I really enjoyed watching Zavala move up last year. I thought he could do more. So I was kind of bummed that he got hurt. But my other ones, I had White on there, and we've talked about him a bit. The other one I have on there, and just because it's one of those that's hard to give up on, is Jack Leiter. And it's just hard to give up on the raw talent. And I'll put it out there for this reason being, I watched a lot of Kyle Wright when Kyle Wright went from the number 7 overall draft pick, and everyone said, well, geez, this is the elite Vandy guy that everyone thought was going to be the, possibly the number 1 overall draft pick that year, and he just hasn't really wowed anybody all the way through the minors, and took some extra time to get it at the majors, and then he had that breakthrough last year. And, it took him a little bit longer, but he got there. And he always kind of had those little sneaking, you saw hints. And that's the same thing. You see it with Leiter, that there's hints. And I haven't seen him put it all together for more than an inning or two at a time yet. But man, when he does, you're like, geez, this guy could be a dominant starter. It's just he's got to put it together for more than an inning or two at a time. And obviously good pedigree there, with his dad's and everything else. So, yeah, he's the one there. This is a system, we're not even bringing up a guy like, Brock Porter, who is one of the most explosive high school arms in the entire draft last year. We're not talking about, Cole Winn, who's a really solid prospect. We're talking about, Ronald Acuna's little bro. We're not talking about all sorts of guys that they have that are really good players. And
Kumar.
So this is a really, really deep system that, yeah, we're not talking Kumar, and one of my favorite guys to geek on is someone who's usually ranked in the 20s in their system, and that's Jonathan Ornelas. And one of those guys, I think he's going to be a really useful utility guy down the road. Just there's a lot of these type of really good ball players in this system right now. They've done a lot of good things in the last few years and built up a really deep system.
Yeah. No doubt about it. This is a fun team. The Rangers, they sign big money free agents, and they have fun youngsters. They're using every piece of their arsenal to try to make a winner in the coming decade here. It's still only 2023, so the decade has not fully fulfilled itself. But I expect the Rangers to be at a World Series before this decade is through.
So you want a fun stat? You want a fun little stat?
I love a fun stat, yeah.
First 2 games of the year. The Rangers had more runs in their first 2 games than the Cowboys had in their first 2 games last year.
Hey, that is a stunner. I think that's impressive. Hell yeah, the Cowboys. Oh, I love the Rangers. Can't stand the Cowboys, so I love that fun stat. That works for me. Donovan wants to know if we hit on Owen White. We did. Yeah. We did cover that. We just wrapped up the Rangers. And by the way, if you ever come in late for the live, or you're just not here and you're seeing this later, you can pause it, rewind it, go back, flip it upside down, whatever you want to do, because it's always here on YouTube anytime you need it, and of course on your preferred podcast platform. All right, next team up. Remember, we're doing 4 teams today on our special opening day for the rest of minor leagues across baseball. Prospects Power Half Hour. The next team will be the Giants. Let's go to the Giants. The San Francisco Giants out on the West Coast. I can't think of a ton of talent that excites me here, but it's not a bad system off the top of my head. So that's why I want to see what Joe Lowry has. Joe, who are the current top 3 prospects for the San Francisco Giants in 2023?
So the first 2 guys I think are pretty much consensus, and you can order them whichever way you want. I'm a longtime noted Kyle Harrison stan, so Kyle Harrison is my top guy. Second guy will be Marco Luciano, and again, I think you can kind of flip flop them. So I'll get to that. Yeah, I'll get to it. So Harrison is as a lefty who's just dominates hitters with a fastball slider combo. He's got a changeup that's coming along and is really the key to whether he'll kind of reach that SP2 kind of ceiling that he presents. His CSW rating last year was elite. He gets double plus zone whiffs. He had his first AAA start, and I watched as much of that as I could while I was working, and that ump was not being kind. I mean, he was all over the zone, and he was not getting the calls. So he didn't get the full run that I thought he should. But he's just a strikeout machine with a kind of low, slingy release point from the left-hand side that causes a lot of problems and tunnels really well with his fastball and his slider. So there's again, I think he's the next man up as kind of the young pitching in San Francisco, which there's actually quite a bit, not necessarily of that caliber, but the system is stocked full of kind of SP4/5s and bullpen arms. There's a lot of them there. But Harrison is that cut above. He's set to join Logan Webb and be kind of the 1-2 punch for the Giants for the foreseeable future. And then we got Luciano. Luciano is there's prospect fatigue with Luciano, right? His power is elite. Double plus power in my opinion. He dealt with back issues, and those back issues kind of sapped a lot of that effectiveness on the offensive side. He's not going to stick at shortstop, which from a real baseball perspective is going to kind of push him down some rankings. But I'm still a believer that the hit and the power are going to come, and they're going to deliver. It's just going to take a little bit longer. Hopefully he figures out the back thing. It's what pushes him down to 2 for me. We don't want to see the Brendan Davis experience again with back issues. And finally, I'll wrap it up with a guy who's really jumped up there, who wasn't here anywhere close to here for me last year. It's Casey Schmidt. He was drafted in that Kyle Harrison draft as kind of a guy to underslot so they could pay the big money to Kyle Harrison in that draft. And, his defense was the calling card. And, his hit and his power tool were fine, but not anything special. And last year, he really worked on engaging with his lower half, and his power shot up. Where, in his first year at Single A, he put 8 home runs up. And last year, across High A and Double A, he actually had 20 home runs. Plus another one in Triple A. So 21 home runs last year. And this year, the Giants have been trying to get him to play some shortstop as well. And again, he's got the arm, he's got the glove. We'll see if he's got the kind of agility to play the position. But that just increases his impact and his effectiveness, especially with kind of the Giants not having much long-term in either of those positions. So Casey Schmidt is my number 3 guy in the Giants system.
Yeah.
All right, Benny, agree or disagree?
Spot on all 3 of them. And I know, Joe's a Giants guy, and he and I have talked many times over on my huge man crush I have on Marco Luciano. I really would love to see him potentially move to right field, because that boy has a gun for an arm, and I think he's a guy who he'll never ever win a home to first race, but he goes first to third very well. He's one of those guys that if you get him moving, he's got some speed. He's just a guy that takes 3-4 strides to get going. And so he's not a bad athlete. It's just he's not that guy who has a holy cow quick first step. And playing shortstop, that's not exactly the best thing, but his hands have gotten significantly better there. And the other thing that was always an issue with him was just the transfer from glove to hand, and that's gotten a lot better. It's at this point, the one holdup for him is that simple thing, that first step. And to get to the majors, he would have to be able to do that and have the range and everything. And with a guy like Schmidt who has such amazing instincts defensively that he literally can move to shortstop because his instincts are so good, why even worry about having Luciano there? And so that's I'd like to see him move to a corner outfield spot, because I just think they could let that arm play and then just let the bat do what it does, because, man, it'd be fun. But, yeah, Schmidt, I really, the way he played out in spring, I thought he might come up with the big club. He was playing that well. And
yeah, there's a lot of talk.
It wouldn't surprise me at all if he isn't on the big club at some point this year, because, hey, they don't exactly have the most stable third base situation, and Brandon Crawford...
David Villar's power? You don't like it?
Yeah, well, I'm not saying that his power and J.D. Davis's J.D. Davis isn't something, but I don't know that that's the combination of the two equates to what Casey Schmidt could be. And
well, definitely not defensively.
Brandon Crawford is not exactly a bastion of health. So you add that in, and there's going to likely be an opening at some point on the left side of that infield for him to come up. And so as long as he can show out, that would be the guy who I could see really making an impact this year out of this trio. Harrison, I bet they wait till at least midseason, because they don't want to tax that arm with major league innings if they don't have to. But gosh, he's fun to watch.
Why don't they want to do that?
Just why put extra innings on that arm unless he's? I mean, if he's pushing the issue, then great. I mean, if he's popping a 1 ERA in the PCL in May, well, then you might have a different discussion. But if he's striking out 13 per 9, we might be having a different discussion. But if he's just having really good starts, time in, time out, getting 6 innings deep and posting a low threes with 10 to 12 K per 9, that's going to be okay, you're showing us that you're ready for the next step sort of thing.
What about this tidbit here? Christian Crespo, who knows about prospects in baseball as much as anybody I know. Correa actually backed out of the Giants deal because he knew he couldn't compete with Casey Schmidt. All right, hell yeah. I like that.
And the Giants don't have Harrison on the 40-man, and they have a few other arms that can just chew up innings in the minors that are on their 40-man, and they're not going to be competitive. So, like Ben said, why waste those bullets, especially on a prep arm? If Harrison was a more mature college arm, then yeah, maybe it's a different story. But
I just think the Giants are going to be a team that's good this year. I think they will compete. So if they do compete, I wonder how that changes the situation. But if you disagree with me, then obviously that's why you say that.
It's a tough division.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a brutal division, but okay, it is. Period. No other but. Next big three then for the San Francisco Giants. Joe Lowry, give us the next big 3 prospects within this system in San Francisco.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people are going to expect to hear Luis Matos, and I'm not going to include him because I'd like to just kind of highlight some other guys for me personally. Because similarly to Luciano, there's a bit of prospect fatigue with Matos, and his star's fallen a bit, and I want to see how he reacts. I think there were some health issues, so I just want to see a full healthy season and see if he's absorb the lessons about patience at the plate, because his swing is amazing. But moving on, I'll go with Mason Black, who is right now he's got 2+ pitches in a fastball and a slider. There's a third pitch is a changeup. His fastball does have 2 different variations, but they're basically kind of the same thing speed wise. And that slider is just a big time out pitch, and I think he's potentially a mid rotation guy. He had plus CSW numbers last year. There's bullpen risk with him like pretty much every arm outside of Harrison in the system. But I think he's probably the next best arm in the Giants system at the moment. Next guy I'll go with is Grant McCray, son of Rodney McCray. For those that remember, Rodney ran through a outfield wall long ago, and now his son may get the chance to do so again. I think it was for the Expos, Ben, that he did that, or what?
I'd have to look that up. Yeah,
it was
one of those great highlights.
Yeah, I mean, it would be the viral video of the day if those things existed back then. McCray is a center fielder who's going to be able to stick in center field with his speed and his glove. He's a power speed guy who was just really a speed defense guy until this past year when the power just blossomed. He was a skinnier kid, I think, who put on some muscle and just really kind of got his first full pass at full season ball, where he hit 23 home runs last season when he had never hit more than 3 in a season prior. The big concern with McCray is strikeouts. He's way up there in his strikeout rate. If he can improve on that, it's watch out. He's going to potentially be in top 100 lists. He's going to be a top 3 or 4 Giants prospect if he can bring that strikeout rate down. And then finally, I'll go with Von Brown, who's a physical specimen. Do not look at his shirtless pictures when others are around. They'll make you swoon. He's just fantastic, patient approach with some really good power. He had 23 home runs last year, stole 44 bases between single A and high A. He's got plus 90th percentile EVs. Got a nice compact swing. Occasionally he'll chase pitches, but he usually makes good swing decisions, and he just needs to get that bat to ball skill set down as he goes up the levels. But he was a huge breakout guy last year, and I'm buying into being somebody off my radar to potentially being a starting outfielder for the Giants in the future.
Woo-wee. Joe, coming in hot. I like it, Joe. That's fun stuff. Mix it up. Let's see some other names out there. Ben, you got to disagree with this a little bit.
I do. I do want to add that I love the Brown story of scouting him through a hole in the fence during the COVID year that nobody could watch them play, and so the Giant scout was scouting him through a hole in their fence in the outfield. That's a great story. So,
by the way, that was in the minor leagues where that wall crash happened. It was not a major league game,
right.
And he only played for the Mets and the White Sox very briefly in the majors. Okay. He's also from Detroit, so there you go, Rodney McCray from Detroit, Michigan. Ben, well, unless you're going to bring this name up, Ben, let's see if you bring the name up first, and then I'll ask this question next.
Okay. Well, Averson Arteaga is the one guy that I'm going to have this different out. I have McCray and Brown on mine, and then Averson Arteaga is the other one that I mentioned. And I really like watching him play defense. He's a fun defender to watch. I am not sold on what his offensive abilities are going to be. That's the thing right now that it's tough to figure out what the offensive potential is. But as a defender, it's there. It's all there, and it's really fun to watch. But he has more power than you would think in that frame. It's just getting to consistent swings in a row is really tough to watch from him, because it's like watching Gary Sheffield wind up, before he would swing. And I always was amazed that if you watch that, you'd go, how on earth does that goofiness end up with, from the point when he starts to swing, the rest of the way is like the most perfect, pristine right-handed swing that you could possibly ask for. That's the opposite, because his setup isn't goofy, but it never leads to the same thing every time. Once he kind of enters into the zone, it's like he'll come up with a goofy uppercut swing one time. The next time it's like he's axing down on the ball. The next time it's a perfect straight through the. I don't know what he's shooting for, but he has really good hip trigger in his swing, and so when he does make contact, it really jumps off the bat. It's just that you don't know what angle he's going to be coming at. And so sometimes it jumps off the bat when he's axing at it and it barrels down right into the dirt, but he does hit it pretty hard, and I don't know what he's going to be offensively. I'd like to see was he at just low A last year or single A, or did he get some high A in? I can't remember that he got any high A in, but regardless, he's still got upper A or upper
low
levels
A.
even.
Yeah. No high A.
Yeah. I watched him in single A, and that was about it. So yeah,
because he hasn't even seen kind of tougher pitching, and so that's going to be a challenge for him too. Is when he's got to really start to work against guys who know how to spin a breaking ball and locate their fastball, all of it, and so that swing really needs to be disciplined. But the defense is fun to watch. It's fun. So.
And that's the only disagreement?
That's the only disagreement I got with his.
Okay. Well, that's great news then, because I want to bring up Christian's point. Joe, what are your thoughts on Carson Seymour?
Yeah, Seymour, I mean, the Giants are another one of those teams you might not want to consider trading with. I mean, they traded Darren Ruff for Carson Seymour. Yeah, we'll take that every day of the week. So, he's he's a workhorse. He can throw a ton of innings. He's got a huge arsenal, of kind of average to above average pitches, with the slider being plus, fastball, cutter, slider, curveball, changeup, good command, a polished arm. So back end starter, but one of those guys that you always appreciate having on your staff.
Okay, that's respectable. Nothing wrong with that. Mr. Christian Crespo, who already knows the answer, but he just wanted to see what Joe thought, because Christian knows all. Also, real quickly, Anthony wants to know, is Brett Wisely a thing for the Giants, or could he be? Anybody?
Well, isn't he on the major league team right now?
Yeah, he was going back and forth. I can't remember with him and Bryce Johnson. I think Wisely went down when they signed or traded for Beatty, and he was supposed to be on the opening day roster, and then they ended up not doing it because they signed Beatty, and then they brought him up a few games later. He's just, to me, he's one of those guys in the long line of just a guys that Farhan Zaidi has crushes on for whatever reason. He just wants to cycle through like 40 of them, and maybe one of them will stick.
Yeah. Decent numbers at AA last year. Got a tiny taste of AAA to close out the year. So he's only 23 years old. Maybe. We'll see. But neither one of you are like, wow, we got to have him.
Yeah. It's that type of guy. Like, I mean, he could do something like Lamont Wade did for a short period of time, but then you don't expect, just kind of like Lamont Wade, you don't expect him to do that again. That's the whole thing. So.
Oh, all right. Well, that's the San Francisco Giants. There you go. That's 2 teams down. Utah. 2 down.
Give me 2.
2 to go here on the Prospects Power Half Hour, our special edition. 4 teams today we're doing because minor leagues are opening across the great Northern American landscape. It's a beautiful time here. Joe Lowry is our guest. Make sure you follow Joe on Twitter. It's real simple. It's just J Hook, right? But it's 2 zeros, I believe.
Yeah, just like the Palazzo podcast. Give me 2.
That's right. There you go.
Give me
There's
2.
your 2, Joe. That's Joe 00 Hook. Joe Hook 2 zeros, guys. You can do it. I know you can handle it on Twitter. All right, next team. Boop, 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 boop. 2 left. I'm going to go with the Astros. Let's do the Houston Astros next here on the Palazzo podcast. Joe, the Houston Astros have just come off a World Series championship. Justin Verlander left. They are filling the void with some talent, and their farm system is not terrible either, right? Who are the top 3 prospects?
Not terrible, but not great. I mean, they're still excuse me. They're still feeling the fallout of losing all those draft picks from
that one thing that happened that one time.
Bang bang, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
The first guy I'll go with, and I think Ben and I are going to be pretty much in lockstep for these top three, is Hunter Brown. He's still got his prospect eligibility, and there's all that kind of stuff out there in social media saying the next Justin Verlander type of thing, and he's got the double plus curveball, double plus slider, a fastball that can get up to triple digits. I mean, what the issue with Hunter Brown is command. If he has command, he is lights out. He's an ace. When his command is off, he's what we saw a little bit of to start the season, right? Mm-hmm. He's 3 to 4 innings and he's done. He's thrown too many pitches, so he's my top guy. Next guy I'll go with is a 2022 MLB draft pick out of the University of Tennessee, Drew Gilbert. I love Gilbert. He's a fiery competitor, center fielder, double plus bat speed, raw power. He's big OBP. He's going to be bringing the speed to the table too. He is going to be number 1, number 2 hitter in my opinion with 2020 with high end OBPs. I'm very much in on Drew Gilbert moving forward. Unfortunately, he got an injury, so right when he started at the complex after the draft, so we didn't get to see hardly anything from him. But he's one of the guys that's a must watch for me this minor league season. And then finally, I'll wrap it up with somebody who I believe made the major league roster was Yainer Diaz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and he was acquired he was part of the Miles Straw trade with the Guardians, along with I think reliever, was it Phil Maton or something like that?
Yeah.
And so Diaz has got the hit and the power. He doesn't really have the defense. I don't think he'll stick at catcher. He can go to first base, maybe some outfield out there too, and. I just think he's got kind of an offensive profile that's going to work, especially in Houston. So I'm in on Diaz. He's traditionally kept his K rates low, even if his walk rates haven't been. So there's a bit of kind of like an aggressive approach at the plate, but. We'll see. I mean, if he can stick at catcher, then I'm a lot more in, because catchers' offensive profiles are rough usually. But still, if he's out in the field, he's still a good enough hitter to make it.
Yeah, and Nostic Baseball points out that Hunter Brown did lose to the Tigers the other day. That is a fact. Yeah. That did happen, folks. So I mean, anything's possible. It doesn't mean he's not a top prospect.
Go Tigers!
But I mean. Things will happen. It's the opening day. It's the new season, blah, blah, blah. So, yes, Gnostic Baseball, I'd love to see that the fact the Tigers beat the Astros is just exciting. But don't get too excited now. Ben, so agreement or disagreement on the Astros top 3?
Agree on the top 3. One of my comparisons I did with Yainer is one of my favorite guys in William Contreras. The very similar offensive profiles. I think William's a better catcher, but in that, Diaz is not a bad athlete overall. I think he could possibly actually play the outfield, just like William went out and he wasn't a bad outfield defender. He obviously didn't have natural instincts, but
your mind Mercedes.
No, we're not even going to get into that. But
okay,
that's. We're talking athletes, not big round things that they stick behind the plate. No, but I mean, offensively, that it's a very similar skill set where there's a lot of power. There's a decent amount of hit tool, but definitely the power is going to lead the profile. But you could see a 260 guy that depending on how much he gets, you're talking 25 plus home runs out of this. And if he can get into the outfield, he can get some first base time, he can get enough DH time. That's a pretty nice guy to have sitting in your roster for really you probably didn't. You might not even had to spend a draft pick on him this year. You might have been able to get him off the waivers after he made the club. So I mean,
nice.
That's a pretty solid pickup. But yeah, Gilbert I think is going to really skyrocket up lists this year. It's just he was such. I think part of it is that team in Tennessee was so good last year that just how good Drew Gilbert was lost to how good the overall team he was. And I think it's going to really show as he comes out this year and kind of has his first full season as a minor league prospect. I think he's going to push their system pretty quick. He's going to jump up in a hurry, and that's going to really show up on as they start doing rankings mid-season and then definitely postseason. He's going to jump up pretty quick. So.
All right. Hell yeah. Joe Lowry, who are the next big three Houston Astros in 2023?
Yeah, and this is where it gets kind of like the Rangers, but in a different way of just throw darts, pick. There's so many guys here that you're just like, I'm going to go this route. So we'll see.
Oh, wait. We got to prove this is live. She wants to know, is this live?
Yeah. Hey.
We're responding to you in real time.
Hello.
Sarah Purton on Twitch. Hi. There you go. That's a proof it's live. Sorry, Joe, to interrupt.
All good. So my three guys I'll go with, I'll start with Jacob Melton. Another 2022 MLB draft pick. Big power. Double plus 90th exit velocity percentile exit velocity ratings. He can barrel the ball with authority. He's got plus walk rates as well, which I like. His unfortunately comes with below average zone contact rates, and that was mostly because of his challenges with the soft stuff, the breakers. Like a lot of power hitters, younger power hitters, that's where his biggest challenge comes in. But if he can figure that out, there's a big time power bat in the wings there for the Astros. Next, I'll go with Miguel Ulola. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he's an interesting one. He's got an elite fastball, elite, and he'll throw it a lot because his secondaries, he's got a curveball, slider, and changeup. They're all varying efficiencies and effectiveness, and very inconsistent. His command is not good, but so either you've got a really high-end, high-leverage bullpen arm, or you're looking at potentially an electric starter if any of those secondaries and the command come around. And he's got some proximity. So you're going to be hearing his name potentially this year, bringing up, and the Astros kind of take this approach, right, where they'll go with the bullpen first and then push him into the rotation type of guy if they can figure it out. And finally, I'll end with Spencer Arrighetti. Again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Boy, we already had a reference in the live chat about Arrighetti. Somebody made a comment about spaghetti. Here it is, yeah. Spaghetti Arrighetti is going to end the year as their number one overall prospect. This is a classic Chad call out, by the way, Joe, if you don't know.
Yeah, well, I know. Chad makes some big calls. I like Arrighetti. He's kind of a bit of the opposite of what I was just talking about, where he's got decent command and he's got a pretty full arsenal that all kind of works, and it works together. And the fastball has good ride on it, and he'll throw it everywhere, and all over the zone. He'll go to the top of the zone. There's when the command is lost, that the arsenal doesn't stand up to it, but when his command is on, he'll pepper the zone and get a lot of called strikes, especially on that curveball, which is surprising. You don't often see that, and so yeah, I think he's a good SP4. In the Astro system, they turn those guys into the sum of the parts guys turn out to be really well, surprisingly. So I'm in on him.
Those are the type of guys that turn into a Framber Valdez.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh,
That's what
I've heard he's good.
That's what they do with those guys for some reason. So,
hell yeah. There's there no, by the way, no Jacob Melton, says Gnostic Baseball.
well, we just
Ben, are you going to say that?
So.
No, that's what I said.
Oh, Christ. This is what happens when I'm doing 10 things at once. I don't even know what's going on. So, never mind. That was earlier before you talked about him, though, so technically that is not a post. That's my fault, Mr. Gnostic Baseball. I take responsibility for the mistake. Joe, I apologize. Please forgive me. Ben, response to the next big three in the Astros system.
So I actually have 0 of Joe's guys on mine, but that's kind of the nature of this Astro system is once you get beyond their top 3, you can kind of, you can kind of put a whole lot of guys in the next big 3. So I have Billy's son, Will Wagner. If you remember him from fall, from AFL, he's in AAA, and God, I like his bat. You know, I like what he can do with the bat. I don't know that he's ever going to be a big power hitter, but he's one of those. He consistently makes good contact, and I mean it's probably doubles contact. I don't know how well.
Yeah, it works for Matt Chapman.
I don't know how he's, and he's not exactly an elite defender, but they've worked with less. Frankly, his profile and Yuli Gurriel's profile aren't that far different. They let that profile play at first base for quite a while. So, it's a profile that we've seen work for that team in the major leagues. So I really like watching him play. He seems to get the absolute most out of what he's got talent wise, which that's always something to enjoy out of a player. And that's kind of where the next guy, Justin Durden, is my next guy. And he's a guy who went undrafted in 2020 in that short draft. And he spent 5 years in college and then went undrafted. So, I mean, kind of a rough go to start his career. And now he just about forced his way onto the roster this year, or this spring, with a really good spring. And just really athletic, strong lefty guy, that good power, speed in the outfield. I mean, I like what he can bring to the game. Corey Joltz just beat him out, so
yeah,
hard to get upset about that. And last is kind of your typical Astros development guy is, and I know I'm going to pull a Joe here and just say I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this name anywhere near correct, but it's Maseo Tamarez, and not an elite fastball, but it's one of those that's elite in what it does. I mean, it can touch 99, but usually is more around 93, 94, but it moves everywhere. And but they've got him already spinning a slider that is one of those that has holy crap numbers as far as its spin, and his control will go from plus to like 20 grade control depending on your day. So it depends on what you have, where you're at for what they graded. Most places graded as below average control, but I've watched him absolutely smack the crap out of the catcher's glove all day long, and then the next start he can't seem to find the zone. So he's one of those guys that's the way they develop them in the Astro system, and they work on that until they're just pounding the zone with the ball. And he already has, that fastball, he has that slider that moves, and he's got a pretty electric changeup too. And if he can just get him into the zone consistently, like I said, that's what they do with pitchers. They develop those kind of guys and turn them into a Jose Urquidy, into a Framber Valdez, these guys, this Christian Javier, these guys they develop, they're not elite arms, and they just turn them into guys that can be productive. And that's kind of where he's that type of an arm. And they've got a whole bunch of these guys. He's just my example of one that he was 20 when he signed. That's another reason why he's a good example, is the Astros like to sign guys when they're a little older. He was 20 when he signed, not a 16-year-old. So, I mean, it's just kind of... He follows a lot of the Astros typical line of things that they do with pitchers. So
that's a good thing. A lot of great pitching. Every year, they get the most out of their starters. I love it. And that's a quality organization. Even if you don't like it on the Astros, they know what they're doing, so just accept it and move on. At least Jeffrey Liu now isn't in the business anymore, which is good. That's a positive. All right, we got one left, folks. We got one team to rule them all. We promised you 4 teams today, and, I don't know if this team is any good ever, any given year, but they're also never, totally god-awful. They're just, they can be in the mix in May and June for a second and then tail off later on, but the Colorado Rockies... Coors. There it is. That was going to happen. I'll probably hit it 5 more times. But, the silver bullet always gets you home. It always has. Right?
This right here is a silver bullet, all the way from Colorado.
So there you go. All right, Joe, give us your top 3 Coors Field products as it stands today. Who are the top 3 prospects for the Colorado Rockies in 2023?
So, sneak peek, there will not be any pitchers on this list.
That's shocking. Shocking information.
It's unfortunate because their farm system should be completely stocked with pitching, given that they can't sign any free agent pitching, at least for the rotation. But I mean, they did sign a free agent bullpen arm, according to Dick Monfort. I mean, that was a big deal, right?
That was a real game changer. Oh, wait. You know what? Before you announce the top 3, I did promise Donovan that I would get this sound effect here.
Oh my!
So here we go. Stand by. I'm supposed to spin the wheel. This is the Price is Right wheel spinning.
To figure out what the last...
If we only had one team left, but I promised Donovan I would do it.
Colorado has a 1-0 game going on in Colorado. Of course, it's against the Nationals, but still. Should have picked Kyle Freeland as your streamer today, folks.
Yeah, Josiah Gray doing the dirty business in Coors today. That's exciting. I'd like to see that. Maybe that fastball is not as hittable this year, or maybe it's just a fluke. All right, Joe, top 3 Rockies, no pitchers, I'm sure.
Yeah, so the one we all know is Ezequiel Tovar, right? And part of that is his prowess at shortstop. He's got a rocket arm. He can cover the range of that whole left side of that infield. I've seen him make some ridiculous throws in the minor leagues. He's there's no doubt that he is the shortstop for the Rockies until he hits free agency. But so that's a locked in position for him, and that gives him kind of just a super high floor. The offensive side of the ball, I'm out as far as this year is concerned. I think there's time where he will come to figure it all out. But his strikeout rates have always been really good, but he just is being a bit challenged, right, facing this advanced pitching. He's a young guy, and his walk rates have typically trended pretty low, so he doesn't have that to kind of backstop the challenges that he faces with that advanced pitching. So I think there's going to be some growing pains for Tovar in the long term. I think he's going to provide you a decent batting average, decent pop, especially in Coors, and I think he's worthy of that kind of first prospect in the Rockies organization until he graduates. Next for me is Zach Veen.
Oh, here it is.
Now I'm going to ignore anything that Chad says in the comments about Zach, but
he admits he may have undersold the Zach Veen 50-50 season, Joe.
Gotta love it. So Veen, to me, I'm not sold on his power. He doesn't have the best exit velocities. They're okay. Everything's okay with him. His ground ball rate continues to trend poorly. He was at 40-ish% in single A, and then 45%-ish in high A, and then 56% in a small sample at double A. And I think that's a problem when you don't have, the out of the park power like a Dustin Harris. That power is there, but it's not there enough to get away with that much ground ball kind of approach. He's an aggressive base runner, right? He's going to steal a lot of bases. He's going to hit and get a lot of balls in play, and the speed will play up. So there's a lot to like. I'm just not sold on him being as high as I think some other people may be. And then finally, Drew Romo. And this is more of a defensive ranking than anything. He's probably one of the best defensive catchers in the minor leagues. And we'll be able to start for the Rockies behind the dish for, again, another 5 to 10 years. There's no doubt the arm, the ability to play that position, he's got it all. I actually know a guy that coached him up when he was younger, and he just talks about him all the time. Mm-hmm. But the hit, he's a hit over power guy on the offensive side. And, the problem is that he's still kind of he's not elevating the ball, right? So he's got the strength, but he's just not got the launch angle and the approach and the swing to engage it. So, I like him. I'm not sure he's going to be overly relevant from a fantasy perspective, though. So,
Drew Romo not going to be relevant. That's it. Oh. Great work today, Joe. You got 3 more players to talk about, and you're off the hook. Hey-oh! It took me way too long to put that one in the show. Jesus. Ben, any disagreements on the Colorado Rockies, also known as the team that plays at
Coors?
Top 3.
I have the same top 3. Just a couple comments that, with Tovar, I think he's been a guy who has typically taken a little bit to adjust to a level. And what I think folks don't maybe understand is he's got a total of about 70 games now above A-ball, because he only played about 65 games last year in Double-A before he got up to the majors, and then about 70 games that are above that, and then he ended up that are in minor leagues above A-ball, and then he's got his major league time. So that's really all he's seen of upper level pitching, and then he went straight to the majors. So he's kind of learning on the fly here in the majors. There's gonna be some ups and downs. So if you're holding on him in a head-to-head league, you're gonna have some tough weeks. But I think you're gonna have he's a guy who down the road he's gonna be a 15-15 type of guy, maybe even better. But it might not be this year. There's going to be some maybe up and down this year. Veen, I had someone from who works with the Rockies who told me he is not in their top half dozen defensive outfielders. He is a bad defensive outfielder.
Wow.
That's a thing to worry about.
What about this? Chad says he's hitting more ground balls because that's what he wants to do.
The offensive skills have come along well, but the defense is a worry. And if he's got to be a DH that steals or that focuses speed, that's kind of an odd skill set. And
could be a trendsetter, Ben.
Especially if he is a guy who can't play defense well going into Coors, into that outfield. That's the worst
huge
spot
outfield
possibly to be a bad defensive outfielder.
The only place I tip my hat to from Comerica is Coors Field in terms of giant outfields.
Romo is a guy who I could see him being an empty high average catcher, which that used to be a guy you could play. But we've got enough catchers that are coming up that are quality offensive catchers that might not play in single catcher leagues anymore. But certainly 2-catcher leagues, keep your eye there, because you're talking about a guy who's going to be in Coors that's a high average guy, which certainly should allow him to keep a high average. But that's might be his only fantasy playable way is 2-catcher leagues. But the defense is going to play. That defense is hellaciously good behind the plate. So,
Okay. Well, shit. Hey, can't be perfect, but to close out the show. Final three, next big three, Colorado Rockies prospects. Joe Lowry for Prospects Live. Tell it like it is.
Yeah, my top guy is Adiel Amador. Amador is a guy who he spent all of the 2022 season at Single A, even though he was just kind of crushing it there. Low K rates, high walk rates, puts the bat on the ball a lot. He's a hit over power guy. And it is the California League where it tends to be more offense. So you have a bit of caution, but I think there's a lot of time for him to figure it out. Again, he's got a bit of the too much ground ball thing going on as well. But again, he's pretty young, and there was questions about why he wasn't elevated towards the end of the season, and I think that's probably it, is that he needs to work on his plate approach. But I think he's probably a future everyday player in Colorado. There's some room to build muscle there as well. He'll stick up the middle somewhere somehow. Probably second base, but I'm kind of in on him. And then the next guy, he's actually on the 40-man, and he was with Amador in Single A, and he got promoted to High A. And this was why the questions were being asked of Amador, is why wasn't he following him? And that's Warming Bernabel. Mm-hmm. I like Bernabel a lot. Again, another kind of hit over power guy, but his ground ball rates were really good in comparison. His strikeout rates were really low. His walk rates were kind of below average, but very good bat to ball skills. Puts the ball everywhere, sprays it all over the field. Has okay power to his pull side. His defense, he's probably better playing in the outfield. I think he was playing mostly third base, I think. But he was playing around the infield a lot in the lower minors. And finally, this one I went back and forth with like 3 or 4 different guys. Sterling Thompson, Yankeel Fernandez were all considerations. I just don't like them enough. And there's a bit of prospect fatigue here, but I'm going to go with Benny Montgomery. And Benny is one it holds a special place in the heart of the baseball card collecting world. Yeah. He has a lot of fun with it. He signed some really fun stuff. Instead of signing his name, he'll sign Borat. He partnered up with his buddy Jordan Lawler, and they made 2 kind of puzzle piece signatures where you put them together and it makes a bigger picture. If you put this card side by side, Benny's a really fun personality. So, I think our thought process when he came out was that his hit tool and his power tool were going to be better than it really has turned out to be. And part of that is, there was always questions around a hitch in his swing and his flat bat path, and that really hasn't changed a ton. But he's still got decent speed, decent power, decent hit, and he can probably play center field, but he probably ends up, we'll see. Given that size, his speed should play up. I've still questioned a few of his route decisions in the games I've watched out there, but again, it's a young guy, and so he's like I said, there's a bunch of guys I wanted here. I'll go with Benny just because he's I enjoy his personality.
Hey, Benny Montgomery, a fun guy. That's a good time. And I like a guy who has fun with his signing of cards. Way to switch it up. I did not know that. That's a fun tidbit about Benny Montgomery. Ben, any disagreements on the next big 3 Colorado Rockies?
So I have Amador and Benny on there. And I went back and forth. I actually considered a couple of pitchers in Jackson Cox and Gabriel Hughes. Both of them drafted this last year. But in the end, I went with another a different guy that they drafted this past year, Jordan Beck, who, another Tennessee outfielder who played alongside Drew Gilbert, nowhere near the same talent that Drew has, but an incredible athlete all his own. And his big question is going to be, is he a 230 hitter or a 270 hitter? And that's really going to determine the rest, because he's got the kind of speed power combination that could be really impressive if he can get to the 270, because he's got some legit power and he's a really good athlete. It's just a matter of he can go searching a little bit for pitches, and but man, is he a fun athlete to watch, and he's got a good arm in the outfield. He can go get it. I don't know that he's instinctual enough to play center, but he's going to be a really good corner outfielder. So that type of guy that's going to be a really good corner guy that could pass in center, but probably shouldn't be playing center. And definitely in Coors shouldn't be playing center, but in Coors he would do just fine in the corner, and that's where a lot of guys that normally can play corner don't last in Coors. So he would be just fine there. But he's going to be a fun guy to watch develop on his way up, because if he can get that if he can get that swing path figured out and access that power consistently, he could be a really, really fun guy for fantasy owners.
Okay, that's fun. Jordan Beck. Yeah, Matt Murray said a grand slam today. Is that exciting, Ben?
He has been crushing the ball. So the only problem is frickin' Hosmer's hitting like 280, so it's not like they're going to get rid of him. So, god dang it.
Yeah, the Cubs are a confusing team. What are they doing? Yeah. Are they trying to contend? It's very odd what's going on the north side of Chicago, but
I think Burbis has like 6 hits, and 5 of them have gone for extra bases or something like that so far this year. So
that's pretty good. That's pretty solid from where I come from.
That tends to be okay. So,
well, there it is. I think we did it. I think we covered 4 teams today. Look at that. Round of applause. Ben, Joe Lowry, our guest today. Prospects Live. Follow Joe on Twitter. It's real simple. You just type in Joe Lowry, and he'll show up. Nope, it's not that simple. For some reason, Twitter's search mechanism is awful. I don't know why it is, terrible. But every time I don't know what the hell's going on there, but you can find Joe on Twitter by typing the @ signal and then clicking the letter J and then clicking 2 zeros after the H. J Hook, 2 zeros. J Hook with 2 zeros instead of O's. Follow him, please. Let's get him to 1,000 subs. He's at 911 right now. That's an ominous number. Let's move past that. Let's get up to 1,000. Let's get up to 1,000 right now. I think we could do it. Everybody get out there and follow Joe on Twitter. That was fun, guys. I thought we had a great time. I'm so glad that we have all minor league baseball rolling now. Joe, Did you have a decent time here? Do you feel like this was productive at all?
Yeah, no, it was great. Appreciate you guys having me. I've always wanted to have my picture next to a picture of the word turd, so mission accomplished.
That's an underrated part of being on the show here, live on YouTube. That's correct. Well done. Well done. Thank you, Joe. That was fun. So if you want to get any more information, follow Joe, follow Ben, Big Gentle Ben. I'm at MJ Govier, of course. Lots of podcasts, 2 L's,
Utah.
2 Z's.
Give me 2.
I'll be on tomorrow, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Friday. Me and Deary will talk about the first week of the season from a redraft and, overall Major League Baseball perspective. So please join us here at 1:30 p.m. Friday afternoon. We'll cover the first week of baseball across MLB. Thank you to Joe Lowry, of course, Ben, my partner in crime. I'm Michael Govier. This has been the Palazzo Podcast. All you guys rule. Thank you so much to live chatters. Donovan, great work, guys. Much love. Thank you, Donovan. We'll see you guys next time.